when we were talking about Deshaun Watson as well, because we
Sorry.
suggested. No, you're good.
Mhm.
We suggested that he would not be traded. That it was sort of like leaning that way, and ultimately the Texans decided not to deal him. Was this more about Miami? Was this more about Houston? Who was sort of the one that sort of pulled the reins back here and resulted in Watson not leaving the Texans?
Well, I, definitely had some, strong moments where I was saying that this was likely that he was not going to get traded. And that was just listening to the tones of the sources that I was speaking to, knowing that adamantly the Houston Texans felt no pressure to have to deal Deshaun Watson by the trade deadline, knowing that the Dolphins were looking for more clarity and kept repeating, even on your podcast, that the only route to getting that was the settlements, but the settlements had the non-disclosure agreement, a contingency on it that Deshaun did not want to do. And then also with the Texans needing for whatever prospective team to meet their compensation level, and that was not happening. So every time, just think about how many times that we were hearing over the last 4 weeks leading into the NFL trade deadline, talks are heating up. It's, da 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 da. And, talks can only heat up until, actually, one, that you actually have the compensation requested on the table. And that didn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, you
understand what I'm saying? The level was set and it wasn't met. And
I was trying to think of some poorly formed analogy or metaphor for a pot of boiling water, where it's like, you can heat up a pot of water as much as you want, but unless or you can heat, I don't know, it was gonna be a terrible metaphor or analogy. So I'll just skip it. But the point being is that it never boiled over, and ultimately, the Texans, what the Texans needed in compensation, this is my take on it at least, is what the Texans needed in compensation to trade away Deshaun Watson was too much for the Dolphins to overcome without getting some sort of assurances, either from Deshaun Watson in the form of a settlement, or from the Texans in terms of pick protection, which is the phrase that you hear all the time in the NBA, which NBA teams use all the time, like a lottery protected pick. What Stephen Ross wanted to do was, and we talked about in the event that Deshaun missed games or couldn't play, the Dolphins would be giving away really good picks. And he didn't want his team to be terrible, to have Deshaun Watson on the roster and to have to give away good picks. So he's looking for pick protection. And the Texans were not feeling said pick protection, probably because in the last few years, they've given away a bunch of picks that ended up being really high, and they're still feeling burnt by it. It happened twice, I believe. Once with Brock Osweiler and then again with the Larry Tunsil. Yeah.
And Josh Rosen.
Oh, yes, right. That's right. Yeah, for sure.
No, you're absolutely right. And the Texans also did not want to have contingencies set upon, the back half of that compensation package. And what I mean is attaching playing time percentages or things like that, like wanting it clean. And, everyone's like, oh, it didn't get done but the reality of the matter is that the middle of March is only less than 5 months away, pretty much about 5 months away. That's really not that long of a time. I know it's a big deal for those of us who do not have 2 commas in our salaries, but for Cal McNair, who has probably, lotto tickets in his corners of his couches, it's snuff change.
Yeah, for sure. So we think ultimately that we'll probably see him traded this offseason, right?
We will see him traded this offseason.
And as we mentioned last week, this probably benefits Deshaun Watson in the long haul, honestly, not being traded, because would you agree with that, in the sense that he has more options where he could go if he wants to open up those options, and he'll be able to potentially find a settlement of these cases over the next several months. The legal process can play itself out, and he'll probably know what his situation legally and with the NFL will be by the time the offseason comes around, one would think.
One would think there would be more clarity. One would think this, waiting could also potentially wear down those claimants against him, in terms of whatever it is that they're asking now, and including for non-disclosure agreements to be signed. or, the amount of money that's being, attached to those settlements. Or they could also dig into. But the other thing from a PR perspective is that the public will likely also be more tired of the, topic, 5 months from now, unless there's new details that, reinvigorate it, so to speak, in the public atmosphere. But whenever look, 2 weeks ago, we weren't talking about Jameis Winston being down. You never know what injuries can happen in the NFL or attrition that will create said demand.
Yeah. I mean, look, Jameis Winston goes down and I'm talking about Phillip Rivers coming out of retirement, right? I mean, like anything can happen when quarterbacks start getting hurt, especially with teams who are in the playoff mix, because Trevor Siemian and Taysom Hill, maybe Sean Payton thinks he can get it done. He's done it before with Teddy B, with Jameis Winston working as backups when Drew Brees got hurt. But, at the end of the day, you got to have a quarterback if you want to win a title. And the injuries that happen to quarterbacks or the natural attrition, the natural. All right, let me ask you this. Anyway, the point being is that it drives the market up. Do you think that the Texans will find it problematic or difficult to deal Watson at all this offseason if Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson and more quarterbacks are on the market? Or do you think that's not as big a deal for Houston in the specific trade here?
Well, I think you're really good at looking things up quickly. So how old is Russell Wilson?
He is 35, I think, maybe 33. I'll tell you.
Okay. Yeah, and then how old is Aaron Rodgers?
He's 32. He'll be 33 this month in November. Aaron Rodgers is 400 years old. Aaron Rodgers is 37. Will turn 38 in December.
And Deshaun Watson is.
I see what you're getting at here. Deshaun Watson, 42, of course, as everyone knows. He is 26.
So if these legal situations are more cleared up, I don't really think that there is a question there.
Okay. No, fair enough.
From the standpoint of how much ROI you can get, return on investment from who you're picking from relative to their age. And everyone, thinks that Deshaun is an elite quarterback, certainly among the top 5, top 7, wherever you want to put him, relative to his age and projected longevity in the NFL beyond this. So if Aaron is available, but the question is, how long do you have Aaron? If Russell is available, how long do you have Russell, compared to, even if Deshaun gets hurt, you still have all those many years after that.
Yep, that's fair. You get Deshaun and you're locking him down. Yeah. You got a franchise quarterback for the next 5 to 10 years minimum. Yeah. Who, by the way, won't have played a single snap this season, which, he'll age a year because that's how, time works. But he hasn't taken any hits like he normally would have behind him. It would have been a questionable Texans offensive line. And certainly, with no defense, he would have been scrambling around, trying to come back all the time. He would have gotten beat up pretty bad this year if he played. So that's a win for him too.
But although, it's really incumbent upon Watson and all these players to, do their best with whoever their trainer is or however they go about it in the offseason to clearly keep themselves in football shape. There's a lot of players who have asked for less practices, especially with the, ratification of the new CBA, but it has also resulted in a lot of soft tissue injuries in the NFL. They ask for less playing time, but they don't have the body callus, so to speak, and going through the motions as much. So hopefully, yes, on one hand, he'll have more time because he's younger, but he also needs to be using this time to make sure that when he comes back, he doesn't snap in two either. You know what I mean?
Right. For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think Deshaun will probably do a pretty good job of staying in shape. And
football shape, not just, like Fonda routines, at home, know what I'm saying? And, keeping the 5 o'clock shadow trim. I'm talking about like being able to take a hit from Von Miller. That's what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Yeah. You got it. Yeah. No, I think anybody who trades for him will be expecting that Deshaun Watson shows up in perfectly good football shape. All right. The trade deadline came and went. No action, of course, but we did. We got. It was amazing that no trade deadline, and we still get all this news that comes out